welcome to today's groupinar. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick tech check before we go ahead and jump into it. I want to make sure that you guys can see the PowerPoint and that you can hear my voice. That's going to be the most important thing. So I see someone already saying, can anybody hear anything? Let's see, yes, perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. All right, so I am Joy Berkheimer. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist working out of my private practice in Boca Raton, Florida. So I am going to be presenting today on attachment styles. And this is one of the things that I probably use a whole lot in my practice if I'm working with somebody individually or if I'm working with couples, because all of us have an attachment style. And I'll get a little bit more into that. We all have a space that we started from in terms of like our original love stories, the way that we identify what it means to be connected to somebody. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can understand how you show up in your relationships or how maybe you pull away in your relationships. It's going to ring some bells for even people that you've been in relationships with in the past. This is not for you to be able to cure anybody else, right? But it is also good for us to understand the people that we are drawn to, the people that maybe we felt like we've been hurt by, so we can also not take some of the things that they do personally, and we can release ourselves from that. But we're going to talk about mastering those connections. You can't see or hear. Going to log in with a different device. Okay, good. Refreshing page. So if you do have a question for me, please make sure you click on the question mark so I know it's for me. If you have a response to anybody else in the group, which is perfectly fine, you can go ahead and give them feedback by clicking on the little chat bubble that's under their name or under the comment that they made. You'll be able to reply directly to them. So please don't use a question mark if it's not for me. I don't know if anyone was able to read the things at the top, but I do want you to know I don't do a Q&A at the end. So if that's something that's going to make you crazy, I'm just letting you know ahead of time. I don't do Q&A at the end. I do take questions throughout the group. I'll take 2 or so questions per slide. And if there are questions that I miss, and I'm sure I will because we are almost at 200 people, you can always email me or direct message me. The information I also put up top. Any question that you have, I do a live every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I will answer any question that you send me before 6 p.m. If you're on the live, you can listen to the answer. You can ask a question as well. It's anonymous, so I don't say who it is, but I will answer whatever it is that you send to me once a week. Okay. It was HER. I think I used to know her from the album. I used to know her. Okay. So how many people have heard of attachment styles before? You have. Perfect. So I'm going to talk about 3 main attachment styles. One of them is going to have like 2 different versions of it. But if you look up attachment styles, I'm also going to give you a book recommendation. You'll see that they have different titles for them. So different theories will have a different name for it. But at the end of the day, any theory that you look up around attachment styles is going to give you about the same information for you to understand yourself. Heard of codependency, but that's it. Okay. So yeah, not necessarily codependency. Codependency is a separate thing. They can be, how could I say, almost like co-occurring, because you always have an attachment style, no matter what else you have going on. It's like a personality type, so to speak, but it can shift, it can change, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So you will have resources before we leave for the day. All right, you guys already know who I am, so let's get that one. All right, so let's get into what attachment theory is, right? And how it helps you identifying like your sense of self in your relationship. So attachment theory designates 3 main styles or manners in which individuals perceive and respond to intimacy in romantic relationships. So this way of responding does parallel those found in children or in our own childhood. So history does actually repeat itself. So I do want to be clear that when we're talking about attachment styles, and I know I'm going to be asked later and it's fine, I'll repeat. I'm not talking about with your friends. I'm not talking about with your family. I'm not talking about with your colleagues. Attachment styles, when we're talking about it in this theory, is applied to our romantic relationships because there is a different level of security when it comes to a romantic relationship than it does with our best friend. Okay. It can be a mixture of styles, right? you generally have a default style at a certain period in your life, right? So your style can change, meaning you can go from a maladaptive style to a healthier style, so to speak. And you can stay there, right? But you have to kind of understand where the original style came from. You have to kind of understand your triggers and how to kind of combat them and things like that. But for one period of your life, you generally have a default that you will be going to for that period. If you have another traumatic situation that happens, it can move you to a different type of attachment style. But I'll get more into that. And everyone does ask, like, can I be a mix of this and this? It's not that you haven't been this type or this type in your lifetime, but generally in this one moment, like for January, you're just going to be this type of attachment style, if that makes sense. Okay. So you can talk to your therapist a little bit more about this once you kind of figure out what attachment style you think you are. And I will give you examples so you have a better picture. All right. So attachment styles, they're habitual ways of being, acting, and feeling in intimate relationships. All of our attachment styles have like a theme or a narrative, like a story that we kind of bring with us. And each of them has a different story. So I'll kind of tell you what those stories might look like. Um, Joy Berkheimer. It should say it. I mean, it should say my name when you go to the presentation, though, but it's Joy Berkheimer. All right. So, intimacy, is this something that you can do? So, intimacy is pretty much sharing everything about yourself and not being afraid that you're going to lose yourself, that you're going to be, I don't know, controlled by another person, that being vulnerable is going to be used against you, or that somehow you're going to be hurt. How many people say you're really good at intimacy? Terrible. No. And just a reminder to everybody, because you have registered for it, even if you have to leave early, you will get a recording of this groupinar emailed to you, and it'll be available for 7 days. Not a chance. Yeah, pretty difficult. Pretty difficult. We don't talk about it, get too attached, right? So intimacy, there's a term that we used to use, working in certain areas, say sometimes in treatment, when you're in a space where you're having a lot of transition, right? Maybe you've come from being, and I'm not saying this is anybody's situation, but I used to work with people who were in a very intense lifestyle, so to speak. Maybe they were homeless, maybe, there were things going on, and then you come to a safe space, into like a treatment center, and there'd be a term that we would use, intimacy, right? You can instantly become friends with someone and start to deeply connect. You look for things about them that are similar, even if they're toxic things, because we do want to connect, but we can be afraid of that connection, right? Then by the time I'm ready to share, oh, seems like too late. Okay. So again, just a question mark if you have a question, guys. All right. So do I have an attachment style? Absolutely. Everyone has an attachment style. Whether you've been married for 20 years, whether you've never been in a romantic relationship before, you still do have an attachment style. Okay. So these are the three attachment styles, and one of them kind of splits off into two. So we have secure, anxious, we have avoidant, fearful, and we have avoidant, dismissive. Curious about intimacy and vulnerability. Are people in my life uncomfortable with being vulnerable and thus won't be intimate? There's, well, there's no, okay. I'm trying to think how I can answer that question, because I don't know the people in your life. Are people in my life uncomfortable with being vulnerable? There's really no way for me to answer that. I don't know if, are you asking, could that be a possibility that that's why they won't be intimate? But there's a million possibilities. So honestly, there's no way for me to actually answer that without knowing anything about them. Yeah. Yes, that is a possibility, that they are uncomfortable with being vulnerable, because a large percentage of us are uncomfortable. A large percentage of us have seen that it is almost dangerous to be vulnerable, right? Maybe someone has used this information against us. We've been in situations where we've identified all people as unsafe. So yes, that is definitely a possibility that it could be that. You will not be able to download the slides. I don't provide my slides. Can we both be fearful and dismissive? Yes. And the song was by HER. I don't remember the exact name of the song. It's called Good to Me. Sorry. All right. So, what's your style? So we said secure, we said anxious, avoidant fearful, and avoidant dismissive. So they're going to correlate with the A, B, C, D. So these are possible dialogues that you would have depending on what attachment style you have. So the first one, A, which would be from secure. I find it easy to get close to others and am comfortable depending on them while also having them depend on me. I don't often worry about being abandoned or about someone getting too close to me. So that would be the secure attachment style. B would be anxious. I find that others are reluctant to get as close as I would like. I often worry that my partner doesn't really love me or won't want to stay with me. I want to merge completely with another person, and this desire sometimes scares people away. Okay. So C would be avoidant fearful. I am uncomfortable getting close to others. I want emotionally close relationships. See, I want them, but I find it difficult to trust others completely or to depend on them. I worry that I will be hurt if I allow myself to become too close to others. And then D being avoidant dismissive. I'm comfortable without close relationships, close emotional relationships. And this is factual. They are comfortable. It is very important to me to feel independent and self sufficient, and I prefer not to depend on others or have others depend on me. Okay. So we're picking all of them, huh? You can't be all the attachment styles. You can feel some features of them for sure. But again, in general, you will defer. You'll have a default to one of them in a period of time. B is going to be anxious, an anxious attachment style. Can you be more than one? Nope. Not at one time. You're not. You usually have one attachment style in a certain period of your life. And is there a way that we can try and figure out what our attachment was before a traumatic experience, like an abusive relationship, and try to get back to that? Well, you don't really need to figure out. So I'll say it like this: secure is the only attachment style that is actually healthy. Um, D is kind of, I don't know. It's not completely unhealthy for your personal experience, but it's not the healthiest if you want to have close relationships, if you want to maintain a relationship. So the goal is for us to be in the secure attachment style. So you don't really need to try to identify what you were before. You just, we'll talk about really tools to get you towards a secure attachment style. And I'm going to give you just a few tools because really what it is, I want you to get a better grasp of why, how you got there, and I like look at it very clearly and then bring this to your therapist so you guys can do more of the work, and I'll give you some tools to do some of the work on your own. Okay. And let me see. What was A? It was a secure attachment style. And is this nature or does nurture play? It's 100% nurture. It's not nature. None of us were born with anxious or avoidant attachment styles. Is there a measure for these styles? There is a quiz, if that's what you're asking, right? There's an assessment for it. So I will actually share that quiz with you. Nope, not that. Where's that? Here it goes. And I probably have the link myself. I do. I'm going to drop the link in the chat for you. Okay. And C was avoidant fearful. Yes. Okay. So let's get even deeper into some of the background stuff around the attachment styles, kind of what type of upbringing, a little bit of the upbringing that you might have and what it would look like. All right. So probable backgrounds, right? So secure attachment style, according to the research, I personally think this is a very high number, but according to the research, 60 to 70% of adults and children are secure. So this person would be parented by a parent who responded when you cried. If you were hungry, they fed you. If you were afraid, they came and they told you it's okay. They weren't highly anxious and making you afraid, like, don't go anywhere. Don't turn that way. You're always going to be hurt. Everyone is dangerous. That parent was not your parent if you have a secure attachment style. Or if you started, I should say, if you started with a secure attachment style, so to speak. So this person is somebody who, when they're in a relationship, they could be identified as codependent by other people, but that's because people get confused about what codependency is. Codependency is deferring your emotions to someone else's emotions. You pretty much just care about how they feel. You feel what they feel. You're sad when they're sad. You're only happy when they're happy, that kind of thing. Now, people will say, oh my God, you're so codependent. You guys have to do everything together. My partner is my best friend and I'm not codependent. And it is very normal for you to be very close with your partner. I mean, why not? This is a person that you're saying you want to spend a whole lot of time with. You should like them. You should be able to laugh with them. You should like to travel with them, that kind of thing. So if your friends are like, how come they always have to go? Or how come you guys do this and that together? That is not codependency. That is literally a healthy, secure relationship, that you can be in the room with each other without, having toxicity cause an issue for you. A person with a secure attachment style, they have the highest level of satisfaction in their relationships and they have longer lasting relationships. So this is a person that can have an argument with their partner, and when the argument is over, they're like, oh, this is crazy. I'm tired and I'm hungry. Can we go get something to eat? The argument's over. Like, you argued, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean we're about to break up. It doesn't mean you hate everything I've ever done. It means we had a very heated discussion. We either agree to disagree, or now we both agree. We see each other's views, and now we're going to continue living our lives. Okay? All right. Yeah, I knew I was going to get this question a lot in terms of the spectrum and being several. Just one at a time. All right. So, anxious attachment styles. So, research says the higher percentage of people with this attachment style are females. Okay. So, a lot of people who have this attachment style have a mother figure who was unresponsive, opposed to the secure attachment person. So, this is a parent who, and I know it says mother, and I'm just telling you what the research says. And it's not that it can't be the father and things like that, but this is what the research is focusing on, that matriarch type of energy. Okay. So this is a person who, if you were scared, maybe they just told you to suck it up. They didn't come to you. They just allowed the boogeyman to be under your bed all night. Maybe they didn't feed you. They may be somebody who themselves was dealing with a lot of anxiety. So they were very afraid and kind of instilled some of that fear in you. They may have been somebody who was dealing with addiction, so they could not take care of you. They were dealing with major depression, so they could not take care of you, right? It's not just people who were careless, but maybe things that were preventing them from being able to be present for you. Maybe they weren't even present for themselves. Okay. It could be someone who's dealing with like personality disorders, things like that, where they couldn't connect with you enough for you to feel secure in that situation. So this person believes that everyone else is lovable, but they're just not. There's just a defect in them, right? Overreacting to signs of perceived abandonment from your partners. You're kind of always waiting and thinking they're going to leave you at some point. You're just looking for the evidence of when they're about to leave you. Jealousy would run rampant. This person is someone who also would have backup people, right? You have friends that you may be talking to all the time, to help validate how you feel about things. And this is not everyone who has these attachment styles, but this is one of the patterns that you might recognize. And you're also the person, which is interesting, you're afraid of being abandoned, but you may repeatedly be the one who is breaking up. That is because the anxiety feels awful. Anyone who deals with anxiety knows that, right? Having things kind of race in your mind, not having control, is very anxiety provoking. So you will literally break up just so you can feel in control, or you can turn that voice down in your head that's telling you this person is going to leave you. Well, they're not going to leave me because I'll just leave them. Like, I just don't want to feel like this anymore. So let me just end it. Right. And this is a person who would be identified by lots of people as clingy. Could you explain what a backup mate is? Oh, hopefully I did explain that for you. Yes, you will get the recording. So, okay, I know we're having to rewrite things. I just want everybody to know, so everyone doesn't have to take notes for you. This is going to be recorded, and you will have an email that'll have a link to the recording, and you'll be able to watch this for 7 days, because I don't want anyone to feel like they have to be like the note taker. It's a lot of work. So B is so me. I'm highly anxious and fit this description perfectly. My mother has both mental health issues, bipolar, borderline, and a history of addiction in the family, and hers, I guess. Is there a way to turn this around? Yes, and we will get into some of the tips. But again, I want to make sure you know I'm primarily focusing on what the core cause is, so you can understand how to start to detach it. But I will give you some tools towards the end. Okay. Is backup mate cheating? Not necessarily cheating. It could be cheating, but it doesn't have to go that far. Sometimes you're having just like an emotional relationship with somebody else, or you just have someone that you're very close with, but it's not necessarily cheating. This second That doesn't look like a relationship question. Nope. Okay, so I see some stuff that's not necessarily okay, got it. All right, so let's move to the avoidant fearful style. So avoidance is the one that's going to break off into two. So the background of the parent is going to be the same for avoidant fearful and avoidant dismissive. All right. So closeness at arm's length. So you do want this intimacy because actually we all want intimacy, but you want this intimacy, but it makes you afraid. It kind of makes you uncomfortable. You don't know if that's like a danger zone or not. So you will take your time with somebody. So to give an example, if I'm in the house with my partner and I have this avoidant fearful style, I might be downstairs watching something on Netflix and say my partner is upstairs in the tub soaking. I'm perfectly happy because you are busy and you're happy and you're not all up under me. You're not requesting all these things from me. And I'm down here happy, but I know that I have access to you, right? I know you exist. So if I want to go up there and touch you or talk to you, I can do that, but I don't need you needing me all the time. Okay. So I like it, but then I'm like, oh, so this is also the person that if you go out on a date with them and say you spend the night, they wake up in the morning and they are the one who's going to be like, oh my God, what did I do? So that's them. So just so you know, I just saw someone say with friends, the attachment styles, again, they relate to romantic relationships. So it's not going to be the same in terms of like your friendships. It's going to apply to romantic relationships. All right. So partners seem to ask for more than you want to or can give. So you don't really want people to depend on you. A lot of that is, say, if you're in this household with this perfectionist mother or a household that there was like a lot of rules. So this could be a highly religious household. It could be a military household or just a household where the person that you that's taking care of you wants everything to be like on point all the time. So what would likely happen is, say you were doing things well, everything is fine, but the moment that you falter, I don't know, you walked in the house and you kept your shoes on, you know you're supposed to take your shoes off, whatever the case may be, they freak out and they may shame you about being so terrible because you didn't follow the rules. And you never want to experience that feeling again of disappointing someone so much that there's like a character attack, that they tell you how like you're such a bad son or whatever, whether it's a man or woman. Higher percentage of the people in this would be males, but you don't like the rules. You don't, because rules come with consequences. They come with punishment if you don't follow the rules, right? So you don't really want people to ask that much of you. You don't want that restriction anymore. You may be someone who idolizes your ex that you actually ran away from. It's like you start to be all mystified and have this vision of this wonderful situation that you yourself left, right? Just it feels better than this. If things start to feel restrictive, you start kind of fantasizing about something else. You want intimacy, but you fear it. Okay. Spending the night on a date, presumably early in a relationship, first date. Wait, what did I miss? Okay, can the attachment style show up as only wanting the other person around when it's convenient and it benefits you? I mean, like I said, everyone has an attachment style. That's not necessarily the reason that you only want somebody around when it's convenient and that it benefits you. It could be that you're just not in the mood for a serious relationship and you just like a casual relationship. You like a cash. That's not an attachment style thing necessarily, right? But it could be. That's it. I don't want it to be that every time you guys meet somebody who wants to be casual, you're just like, oh, you just have an avoidant dismissive or an avoidant attachment style. That's the problem. No, maybe the problem is they're one, not into you, or two, they're not into a relationship. So let's not diagnose people just for the sake of making it better. Some people are just like, they're who they are. And you're not a bad person if you want things to be casual either, if you're honest about it. Can you develop an attachment style while dating? Yes. I was very anxious in my past relationship, and now I'm dating. I feel like I am avoiding fearful. Yes. When things happen, something traumatic can shift, or something healing can happen that would shift your attachment style as well. How can my brother be secure and I'm not? We're only 2 years apart, and because when we're talking about the parenting style you have, that is one way of having an attachment style. But if you guys are adults now, you've had other relationships that could potentially have shifted your attachment style. I mean, your first boyfriend or girlfriend in school could traumatize you enough to have a different attachment style than you had when you were younger. Okay. For the attachment style, is it specific to mother father roles, or could it be? It could, yes, it doesn't have to necessarily be that, but I'm more so quoting the theorist for this particular attachment style. Is a couple where they are A and D a bad mix? There's no bad mix. Well, A, first of all, is secure. So a secure person can kind of be with whomever. So when you get into the book will actually talk about avoidant, dismissive, and anxious attachment style people having the most trouble. You do have the most trouble if nobody is trying to change. If someone's like, I'm perfectly happy the way I am and you're just going to have to deal with it, you can't survive that. And that's why I say D is not necessarily unhealthy or harmful to the particular person experiencing it. It's harmful if they wish to have long-term relationships. It's very hard to stay connected to that person because they value relationships differently. Can you generally have a secure attachment style but be in a relationship that makes you attach differently? Yes, a relationship can shift your attachment style. I think I'm A, but my current relationship makes me act like C. So you're pretty much, if that starts to be your default in the relationship, that is your attachment style in this moment. And so that's what I was talking about earlier when I said you can have an attachment style that is a default for this particular moment. It could be traumatic that you're in this relationship. If something is making you avoidant, fearful, or anxious and things like that, something not healthy, there's an unhealthy dynamic that's going on that you are adapting to that instead of maintaining who you were. And Q&A is done throughout the group. You can reference the chat in the very beginning, but Q&A is done throughout the group. So yes, the answer is yes. We're doing Q&A all day. All right. All right. Just drop this again because I know more people came in. So we'll just do that again. And what happens when you were a secure person, but because of life experiences, you now are avoidant, fearful? What do you mean? What happens? Help me understand what that question means, if you can. Sometimes people will say, what happens when I break up with my boyfriend? Well, you break up with your boyfriend. Oh, I didn't do the book title yet. It's coming. All right. So the last attachment style, avoidant, dismissive. Okay. So avoidant, dismissive, same structure in terms of like the type of parenting you may have had, very strict rules in your home, right? So sometimes you will be identified as not clingy, but heartless. So if you've ever been identified as heartless, this might be you. This person feels safest living on their own terms. They love their independence. They thrive in their independence, right? So they are very much okay with long distance relationships. Some people cannot do long distance. They need to have a certain level of seeing you and touching you and attaching to you in a certain way. But someone with this attachment style is not faking it. They really are okay. And they're not necessarily cheating on you either. Like, oh, they just like to be with a bunch of people. It's not about that. They're okay with seeing you when they see you. So they love their freedom of choice, and trust is an interesting thing for a person with this attachment style. They trust that every relationship ends. That is what they believe. So they don't get all frazzled when relationships do end. Okay. So here's the thing about that. How does it develop? The same way that the avoidant fearful did. So it's the same background. Also, higher percentage of this person would be males. Okay. So if you were to get upset with this person and you're like, I'm just tired of the fact that you haven't been calling me the way that I want. We're just not connecting enough. You know what? I came back to give you your key back to your apartment, right? So you go there and you're thinking you're going to get them all hyped up because you're serious this time, and you slide over the key to them on the kitchen counter. They're going to say, oh, okay. And you're going to be mad because you thought they were going to be like, no, baby, please. They're not going to do that. And it's not because they're jerks. That's just not how they're processing it. They kind of like, well, this is the thing that happens. I get it. If you're not happy, you should be happy. So I'll take the key and I'll let you go and be happy, right? So don't have expectations from a person with this attachment style if they're not working on moving towards a different attachment style. So, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't change, right? They should if they want to have a healthy long-term relationship, but you have to know who you're dealing with. Okay. I believe B. That's not a question. Let's see. Is it a concern to start getting to know someone who is avoidant dismissive? It is a concern, especially if your attachment style is an anxious attachment style. Yes. And if it's so hard to tell with a new person because they would have to be somebody who's willing to work on their attachment style. They may have no desire to do so, right? So you want to be careful about if they're not talking about growth, because a lot of us have a growth mindset and are always like on a journey of self-discovery and things like that. If they have no talk of that whatsoever, yes, it could be a little bit dangerous for you. Okay. Traumatic experience, abuse, etc., can change your attachment style. Yes. And okay, there we go. It can be hard to distinguish to us. Yes, it can. I know. That's why they're identified as heartless. I know. But that's why I'm opening your mind to something else. I don't believe that anybody is necessarily a jerk. I know you're going to hate hearing that. Everybody has their stuff. Everyone does stuff for a reason. We have the whole rejection group that I do, and we talk about people who ghost people and things like that. Everyone has a reason. It's not nice, I guess, so to speak. But no one does things for no reason. Like, I just decided that I wanted to break some guy's heart today. That sounded like a good Tuesday. It's not that, right? And it's not even excusable. So I'm not saying like people should get a pass because they have pain. No, you need to see them for who they are and understand that with pain comes consequences. And do you want to deal with somebody with pain? You are here to protect yourself, not to change them, and not even to brutalize them or throw stones at them for being terrible. You need to put stones around yourself and scoot away. That's really what I want you guys to do. Okay. And do dismissive styles from relationship? I think you're asking, do they move from relationship to relationship? Not necessarily. They can be in a long-term relationship if somebody will stay with them. So, all right. So, what now? What now is processing what your attachment style really means. What was the attachment style's purpose? Understanding, again, we have a narrative, we have a theme for every single attachment style. We've been viewing the entire world through this particular theme, through these attachment style or colored glasses, so to speak, right? So understanding that it is something that is like a story outside of you, and you don't have to live in that story. All right, let me grab a couple more. Let's see. How do you get your partner to understand you don't want to live with them and see them all the time? I got to put a pin in that question. I don't know how to even answer that. Like, other than saying, I don't want to see you all the time, I think your partner would need to understand why you don't want to see them all the time, or that you don't have that level of need of wanting to see them all the time. Really, what all of our partners want to know is that you still do want them. They want to know that you still think that they are a priority, that you value them. But our actions and behaviors can say, I don't value you at all. You're nothing, right? That may not be what you're saying. You might be like, I really like my alone time. I value that as well. So you have to communicate all the things. It can't just be like, could you please stop calling me? Like, what? Because the first thought of another person is going to be like, you don't want to talk to me. You don't like me. And then it goes like, then they write a whole chapter in their head, right? So you have to communicate it by saying all the stuff and not just one thing. Let me scroll down. Disorganized is what you meant, right? Disorganized is, and I said there's other theorists that talk about it, and they're pretty much talking about you being a mix of the other ones. So I would research a little bit more into that, but like typically, like I said, you have a default. You go to one. And I'm going to kind of talk about how to work on your attachment style, not necessarily early on in dating, but just period. And I'll pick this last question. Again, if I miss any questions, please email me or direct message me, and I will answer your question tonight. Do you think two avoidant dismissives can be good together? Honestly, I think they would probably be perfect together. So yes, but it never happens. It never happens. I don't know why. It never happens. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen that those two people don't find each other, but for some reason, anxious and avoidant always come together. It's a very interesting thing to me, but that would be great. They'd be great together. All right, so let me move to the next thing. So, tools to start this shift. Okay, so compassionately notice and interrupt these thoughts, these anxious attachment style themed thoughts, right? So, there's a book called, oh my God, I can't remember what it's called. I always do that, but it talks about like our stream of consciousness. It's basically kind of like a Buddhist book, and it's talking about our thoughts and our consciousness being separate from ourselves. Okay, so if you think of like a ticker tape that is going in front of your face, you can see this thought coming and you can allow it to pass by, or you can go with the thought, right? You do not have to go with the thought. It is just like a picture that's coming up in your mind. All right, yes, it is the untethered soul. Thank you. I always forget it. I read the whole daggone thing, but yes, untethered soul. So when you realize that this is a separate thing, you realize where it's coming from, you don't have to give it life, right? So identify, oh, that's one of my anxious thoughts. That's one of my avoidant thoughts, right? This belief around being afraid of intimacy, whatever that is. So you see the thought, you let it go, but you have to affirm it for what it is. Because if you don't affirm it for what it is, you will just affirm it as truth and you'll go with it, right? So you want to be clear about affirming that. All right. So also what can happen in terms of our attachment styles, we can feel very shameful for what that style is. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Understand that your non-secure attachment style was your friend at a certain period of time. Something happened where you had to protect yourself emotionally, spiritually, whatever the case may be, to get through a particular relationship, to get through a particular situation, right? So to keep your mind sane enough to move through this process. So the problem is we maintain that attachment style and we apply it to the current relationships we have when the same situation is not happening. So then it is maladaptive. It's not really molding to the safe situation that we have going on. And that's how we push people away. Okay. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. Just understand you needed it. You're not broken. You're not stuck. But when you need a tool and you don't, if I'm working on my house and I need a hammer, I need a hammer. But now if I'm working on the pool, I need a saw. I'm just mixing, I don't know, whatever. But I'm just, I'm saying it's okay that you have this thing going on. So compare your inner voice to what's actually happening. So you want to be a little bit of an investigator, right? So seek supporting evidence, especially if you're having a hard time affirming the thought and letting it go. Okay, fine. So you have the thought. Well, where's the evidence that this thing is actually going on, right? And I'm going to show you a thing about the mind police. If this is something that you can break apart, allow yourself to break it apart. Is this just in my head? Did I see anything that is similar to the reality of what I might be thinking? And if not, then you can move forward. Okay. I know I had a lot. So I'm getting the question, can two of whatever style, any styles can work together, but there's a lot of work. Both people, or even if it's more than two people, everyone has to accept what their attachment style is. If you don't know better, you can't do better, right? So what I had to do with my partner, because my default is not a secure attachment style, and we are very different attachment styles. What I had to do is I actually got the book. Let me scroll down to the book to show you guys, as a matter of fact. So there's two books, Love Factually. And this is going to give you the whole picture of the science behind like how we pick people. And it does talk a bit about attachment styles, but there's also a Kindle book. It's called Love Factually as well, but it's going to say Love Factually Attachment Styles. And I think it's like $4 or something like that, right? So if you go on Amazon, you'll see this Kindle book. Don't do the proven steps from I wish to I do. Look for the one that says Love Factually Attachment Styles, and you will see it's the same author, Dr. Welch. It's such a good read. It has really good examples around like what it looks like to have an attachment style and how you can connect with another person with a different attachment style. It gives activities and things like that. So we had to sit down with our book, and I was reading the attachment styles. I said, okay, you tell me which one you think I am. So we didn't make it accusatory, right? It wasn't like, you're this attachment style, this is your problem. I let him tell me what he thought I was, and then I told him what I thought he was, and we were accurate. And then we talked about like what it actually looked like, where it came from. So there was an acceptance of who we were, and then an accountability and responsibility to shift that. But I can support you in shifting it, and I can remind you of what might be happening and how you're being triggered right now, right? I can empathize instead of being pissed at you and taking everything personally. Now I can see you for some wounds that you have, and I can also honor the fact that you're working on it, right? So any of the attachment styles can work. You don't have to avoid any attachment styles, but if one of you is not doing the work, it's not going to work. It's as simple as that. But that's for anything health wise. To continue to build a bond. The book. I took the quiz. Let's see. Okay, not giving into the anxious or avoidant thoughts feels like I'm giving into my partner or the relationship in terms of increasing vulnerability or the chance of getting hurt. Is that normal? It certainly is normal, especially if you have an avoidant attachment style, which is what it sounds like. If you're worried about giving into vulnerability, I have a feeling that you may be an avoidant, fearful attachment style. But again, I would read a little bit more into it so you can kind of have a buy into it. Although everyone, again, kind of struggles with intimacy, some people more than others will struggle with being vulnerable. But yes, it is normal to feel that way. And that is you combating your default protective way of, I need to hide, I need to keep this safe. It's normal to feel that way. Oh, this is a good question. When you say attachment styles, does this mean what I look for? For example, I relate to A most. Does that mean that in my relationship I seek? No. Were you here at the beginning of the group? No, no, no. It's your attachment style. It's how you relate in your relationships, right? How you show up in your relationships. And I get this question a lot. Is it easier to work on your attachment styles when you're single? Not necessarily. Now, if you're in a toxic situation, relationship, everything is easier without that toxicity. If you're in a relationship that is supportive of your growth, it is patient enough for you to kind of make changes, for you to make mistakes, it's perfectly fine. You do not have to break up with anybody to work on your attachment style. Okay. All right. So the mind police. This is the book. I'm going to go back to it in a second, though. So the mind police. This is an exercise that everybody can do. I typically like having like a small notebook that I can write in, but you can do it on your phone. So what you want to do 3 times a day, and I would suggest doing it for at least 2 weeks. You're creating a habit. Usually a habit is 21 days, but I think 2 weeks is a good amount of time to have to write something down 3 times a day. Okay. So this is you kind of practicing another way of thinking about things. So you want to write down the anxious or avoidant or whatever your attachment style thought that you may be having, right? Then you want to write down the reality. So an example of that would be, my girlfriend is going to work today, and I think that during lunchtime, she's going to probably sit across from John. He's going to entertain her. He's going to be able to take her home tonight, and she's not coming back, right? The reality thought would be, my girlfriend loves her job. She would never risk 1 hour relationship or having an inappropriate situation with somebody at work. She told me she loved me this morning. She just sent me a text message telling me so. What is the actual reality of the life that you have going on right now? So I want to give you a little bit of caution around this. This is not me telling you that if your spidey senses go off, that your partner is cheating on you, that you should always debate yourself and be like, they're not cheating on me. No, they might be cheating on you. Okay. So I want you to look at the things that are really happening. And if the evidence says this person is doing something that is outside of the agreements of your relationship, then you need to address that. So this is not about ignoring things, but this is about presenting clarity around all the things that are happening. Okay. Let's see. Does anyone know if love languages is what you like? It is your love language. The test is what you like, and it's actually a research-based test. So it's real. I'm giving you my clinical professional 10-year opinion. It's a real thing. I work with couples it's real. The love languages are real. But it's telling you what, yes, you like when you take the quiz. And typically the thing that you like, you're also going to try to love someone else in that way, because in your mind, that's what people like. and your partner may actually need something different. So usually what I suggest is both of you taking the quiz. There is an app called Nudge where if you are in a couple, both of you can be attached to this one app. You take the quiz, your partner takes the quiz. It tells you your partner's love language. It also tells you the partner can put how much their love tank is full. They can put a percentage. So you're kind of sending the message, you're doing a good job, you're not doing a good job. And it also will give you tasks. Like if your partner's attachment styles is physical touch or whatever, it can give you a list of 20 things to do every day. Like you pick from this list so that you make sure that you're filling their bank with the thing that's important to them. But the love languages are legit. All right. Can a type D person love someone but still choose not to make effort to change their detached behavior? Yes, absolutely. You can love people and choose to do something different. An anxious style person can love somebody and how can I say, and see that they're a good person, but still accuse them of trying to leave them or abandon them because their own narrative is telling them that everyone is going to leave them and that they're not lovable, right? So somebody who is maybe avoidant fearful can absolutely love you and desire this intimacy, but they are afraid of the intimacy, so they act out their attachment style. Someone's feeling super secure. Nudge is the app. Oh, thank you for writing that. Do you recommend taking it together? The app is specifically for you to do it together. Yes, I do. All right. And should you talk to potential partners about previous relationships as a way of figuring out their attachment style, or is that not helpful? I think you can organically talk about it, but I would not be interviewing new partners about their old relationships. It's I just got anxiety just thinking about that. Somebody asking me like, what? You learn about it over time. There's nothing wrong with talking about it, but I wouldn't have like pointed questions like, well, tell me about your ex and what you did to them. All right. Let's see. And what would you say is a person's attachment style if they are abusive in the relationship? That has nothing to do with attachment style. Would it be avoiding this? Nope. Yeah, I don't want to attach abusive towards any attachment style. Anybody can be abusive. Think about it. If you're anxious attachment style and you have a high level of jealousy and you're not secure, you can be abusive because you're insecure. If you are secure, right, you can still be abusive because it's something that you learn from your parents or wherever you live, that people are abusive towards other people and it's completely normal. There's so many reasons and triggers for being abusive. You could, I don't want to get into all. You could have so many different reasons. So it's not attached to the attachment style. Okay. All right. And I think I'm just trying to scroll for some questions. But again, I'm going to remind you, if I did not answer your question, please email me or direct message me and I will answer your question tonight. All right. So non-secure attachment style, which is all of them other than the secure attachment style. This can lead you to dating people who seem that they're appealing, but they don't really give you what it is that you need. It can lead you to reject people who you are a good fit for, and you can misinterpret what your partner's doing or saying because you're seeing things just through your view. Now, I did see someone talking about how the avoidant attachment style seemed pretty healthy. So I'm going to go back really quickly just so you can see some of the things. Avoidant fearful is really not that awful, but this is a person, think about it. If you have a partner who never wants you to rely on them, like, hey, can you get that cake and bring it over to Jenny's baby shower? This is a person who literally, because their attachment style may tell you, oh no, I have these three other things to do. And they may not be telling you the truth, but they may just be afraid that somehow they're going to mess up the cake order and they're not going to be able to do anything, right? And so this is a person who you might feel like they're never reliable. They never help you. And it's not that they don't want to be helpful, but they're afraid of somehow letting you down. So no, that's not necessarily a healthy thing to do. And it's not very connected. In terms of the avoidant dismissive, I do get that a lot where it can feel like it's healthy. So this is probably my default. And I work toward being in a secure attachment style. So just full disclosure, right? This is my go-to. I'm good. I can be very happy here. But the problem is if I want to maintain a partner in my life, I have to check myself. And the behaviors that we may have, they send the message to somebody that they're not important. And you cannot make people you love feel like that. If you want to maintain love in your life, you can't make people feel like they're nothing to you. Even if you feel like they're not, you're not that type of person who's into this huge romantic love and you have to be like at their feet all the time. It's fine, but you have to respect. We have needs. Everyone has needs. If your partner has a need, even if it's not completely natural to you, as a person who loves another person, you should desire to want to give your partner some things that they want as they desire to give things that you want, right? So I'm not saying that any of it's necessarily unhealthy, but it does not adapt to connected relationships. Okay. To message directly, you would send either a direct message to at Glow Your Goddess, or you can email me at joy@glowyourgoddess.com. Okay. So let me scroll up. The book is going to be really good, guys. So, and I'll scroll back. Remember, it's Love Factually, but attachment styles. The blue, the little Kindle one, Love Factually, attachment styles. Okay. On the quiz, what does avoidant match up with, and what does disorganized? Disorganized is just pretty much saying that you are a combo of how can I say anxious and avoidant. This is what I want. I want you guys to also do this when you're taking the quiz. Be very careful. When you are taking it, make sure you're thinking about your last relationship, not 3 relationships ago and not a combination of all the relationships. This is where you are right now, right? So you want to think about your last or current relationship when you're taking the quiz, or it'll get all mixed up. Okay. Yes, I will send you the link to the quiz again. I want to thank all of you guys who replied to other people, affirm some things, because obviously I can't see all the things. Thank you for sharing a lot of your experiences. I appreciate it. Same question. Should you talk to potential? Oh, you already answered that one. Okay. I know there's a bunch of stuff that I'm just scrolling up to see if there's one more thing. Should you leave someone? Oh, should you leave someone who isn't willing to change? Yeah, that's up to you. I can't tell people, I can't be telling you guys to leave people all willy-nilly. It's up to you. You have to decide what is acceptable to you. Some people will stay with people who will never change, and they accept it because they feel like this is enough for them. They feel like this level of love they're getting is enough for them, right? So, oh, someone else said it. I don't know what the change is. Like, is the change that they burp and never say excuse me? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So it really depends on the level of importance. What is the risk? What are you losing if you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Like, what exactly is it that you're just leaving people for, right? So everyone has the ability to change, but sometimes the need for the change has to be explained to them in a way that will land on them differently, which is why when I try to approach things, I get angry, and sometimes I don't explain things the right way, and I have to go back and I have to say it in a way that I know my partner will accept it. You have to think about how you're expressing something. Anytime someone feels defensive or they feel like it's a character attack, you're just telling somebody how bad they are, and you're not telling them what you need or how they can help you have a more fulfilling relationship, right? Like, I have faith in you that you can give this to me, and this is how, right? It's different than you suck and you need to stop sucking, right? So it's about how you deliver it. Attachment styles and love understood. Yes. The book, there's 2 books. Laura Mucha is Love Factually, the science of who, how, why, why we love. And the second book is by Dr. Welch, which is a Kindle book, Amazon. Okay. All right. You and your significant other watch this together. Are they subscribed to BetterHelp? Did you let them sneak on your screen? I'm kidding. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you had a great holiday yesterday if you were celebrating the holiday. And as always, if you guys have ideas about topics that you think would be helpful that you don't already see posted on the group in ours, it's going to change every week. Please go ahead and send the help desk different ideas that you think would be helpful. Okay? All right, guys, have a good week.